Hey, welcome back to the Massive Impact Podcast. This is episode 014. I have a very special guest with us today. I'm excited to jump into this conversation with her. Just so everyone knows, this is actually the first time we've ever spoken with one another, ever. And this is also the first guest of many more to be on the show while meeting them the very first time. We've been connected on LinkedIn, I guess, for some time now, and her content really stands out in a sea of social media information, and that is exactly why I reached out to her. She has over 80,000 followers on LinkedIn. She has generated over 60 million impressions. She says that a strong presence on LinkedIn is the best asset that you can have. As of November of 2024, she's the founder of Magnitude, which is ghostwriting services for C-level executives on LinkedIn. She can create your LinkedIn content, which will help you achieve your desired outcome, whether it be more clients, a more established personal brand, or more sales. Her experience can get you the visibility that you need. Her weekly podcast, You're Not a Bad Person, helps you step into your most authentic self. And from December of 2019 through March of 24, she was the founder and CEO of Bro Dough, cookie dough bites available in retail across Canada. And finally, she says, and I quote, "I will die on this hill. Authenticity is the new brand strategy." Erica Rankin, welcome to the show. How are you?
Wow, what an intro. Thank you. I'm great. How are you?
Doing great. Yes. Thank you for being here today. Where are you today?
I am currently dog sitting in Austin, Texas. So I'm here
Oh,
for another few days and then I drive back to Canada next week. So yeah.
awesome. Probably a little bit warmer down there, down south.
Yeah, it's really great. It's honestly, the heat has been really nice. Where are you based?
So I'm in Charlotte, North
Okay.
Carolina. Yeah,
Oh,
pretty temperate, pretty mild weather in the winter. Yeah.
cool.
So, well, thank you again. Before we get into some questions here, I think you're really onto something with this authenticity being the new brand strategy. How did you think of that, or how did you come to that conclusion?
I'm a believer. So I started posting, I guess, going back to 2020 when I first got on LinkedIn. I first started getting on social media. I saw a lot of shiny stuff. Like we tend to brag about all of the good going on in our lives, whether it be personal or professional, but very rarely do you ever see someone pull the curtain back and humanize things and talk about the things that are very uncomfortable to talk about. And we care a lot about what people think of us and how we are perceived and how it's going to affect our reputation. But I found the most impactful content is the uncomfortable content, is the content talking about failures, mental health struggles, all of these things that a lot of people aren't comfortable sharing. And that's the content that resonates. That's the content that sticks out to me. And that's the content that I was putting out on my platform. And I found that I was experimenting with all different types of content. And whenever I was honest and just shared stuff that was a little bit difficult to share, it always reached the right people and it helped the right people. And I think we're most equipped to help the person we used to be. And all of the things we go through, they're all stories and lessons that we can share with other people to help them on their journey. And that is far more impactful than throwing up a viral quote, in my personal opinion. And if you think back to all of the content you've read over the past few weeks, do you remember the viral quotes and like, the billboards and all of the stuff that has millions of impressions versus, the kind of one-offs posts where someone's talking about their experience or something they struggled with?
Totally agree. Yeah. It seems that, people are either talking about their accolades or, their job promotion or, you know, sometimes material objects, the new car that they bought on LinkedIn. And as you say, you sort of expose, the authentic you on the platform. So you've only been on since 2020, is that right?
Yeah, I honestly, and I never intended on like having a following. I just went on there because I didn't know how to grow my business. And I thought, okay, all my friends work for the government. I don't know a single entrepreneur. I don't know anything about the food industry. Like, how do I scale this? So I went through my pantry and I found a bunch of like my favorite products, and I found the founders and CEOs on LinkedIn, and I reached out to them, and some of them actually to this day are like my friends and mentors, and they helped me on my journey. But I found in going on LinkedIn, scrolling the news feed, it's all the shiny stuff like you're talking about, the promotions and scaling a company and raising money. And here I am, like spending 10 hours in a kitchen hand screwing jars onto cookie dough containers until my hands bleed. And I'm like, am I doing it wrong? What am I, is this what like entrepreneurship is like? Is this a reality of it? Or so I decided to share it. And then more and more people started talking about their experiences and messaging me and be like, oh my God, I felt like I was so alone on this. Like, we're in the same boat. I get it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really nice to see people now openly share their journey and quote unquote, they call it building in public because it's
Mm-hmm.
very inspiring. And then also, it kind of just gives you the comfort to know you're not alone in all the shit you're going through, right?
Absolutely. Wow, that is really powerful. I've seen you also post things, sometimes not even promoting your business, just hey, I'm out taking a walk or what have you, right? You're not always sort of in this sell mode, and I think that's refreshing for people to go on and not be sold to all the time. They can actually just kind of breathe and see that, people have a life outside of work. Um, Okay, so you mentioned Brodo. I'm actually going to work backwards from Brodo. Okay, what was it? How did you get the idea, and why did you start Brodo?
So, long story short, I graduated from university with a bachelor's in psychology and I got into that field and I worked a regular 9 to 5 job for about a year and a bit and I hated it and I quit that job and I went to Southeast Asia for 3 months. And on that trip, I met entrepreneurs. I've never ever been exposed to this lifestyle before. I didn't know it was a viable path I could take. And the one thing that they all had in common when I talked to them is that their faces would light up about like when they talked about what they did. And I always taught like, you live for the weekends, Friday's good, Monday's bad. And these people just loved what they did. Didn't matter what day of the week it was. And I thought, I really want that. I don't know what exactly it is going to be for me. I don't know what business idea, but I want that. And I got home and I remember I was sitting on the carpet in my mom's living room and I was just brainstorming different business ideas. And prior to going on my trip, I competed in bodybuilding in 2018 and I had to get rid of like all of the things that I loved. Like I have a huge sweet tooth, so I had to add protein to things, remove sugar, like manipulate all of these recipes. Like I would make protein donuts and protein cookies and
Mhm.
protein cookie dough. And that specific recipe, it always went viral when I posted it on my Instagram. People loved it. They asked me if they would buy it from me. And I never thought that it would be a business. It never crossed my mind. It was just something I was really passionate about. So I asked myself, what do people want? Okay, well, I proved that people would want to buy this and,
Mhm.
invest their money into it. And then I'm passionate about it and the market needs it. Like there's nothing like this in stores right now. So I drove out to the nearest business resource center and I learned how to write a business plan. And then I found a commercial kitchen and then I kind of just got started that way and made it out of a kitchen. I brought it back to my apartment and was packing orders from my living room table. And this was all during the pandemic. So it almost was like a pandemic project. I launched 3 months before the world shut down. So it was a blessing and a curse because a lot of people were spending time online. But yeah, the product itself, it was vegan, high protein, low sugar, clean ingredients, and it was just something that I personally loved and I wanted to bring to the market. Like I loved that people could enjoy a sweet treat while still staying on track and reach their health and fitness goals.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I doubt many people know the backstory to that. So how did you figure out sort of the execution about the company, starting a brand? You mentioned you had reached out to some other CEOs. You mentioned going to the library, writing a business plan, but how did you have guidance? Did you have a mentor?
No, if I could go back in time, I would do things a lot differently. I was very delusional and very naive. I just knew nothing. I knew nothing about the food industry. I knew nothing about margins. I didn't know, like, I didn't even have experience in the food space, like food science. I had mold problems with my
Mm.
product. Like, it was a lot of stumbling and just Googling stuff and messaging people and asking questions. And it really, I kind of did it on my own for the first year and a bit. And I took it as far as I could, and then I plateaued and I didn't know how to grow it. But yeah, I definitely could have moved quicker, I think, and grew the business a lot quicker. And maybe things would have turned out differently. I don't know if I had the proper knowledge and resources in place from the beginning. Resources being money. I also did not know how much money it would take to grow a CPG company successfully.
Right. And I'm glad that you mentioned that because that's a segue into my next question, actually. If you don't mind me asking, how much money did you pour into this venture?
Yeah, so I kept reinvesting. So I didn't take a dollar from the business. I didn't pay myself in the 4.5 years I built it. I had a full-time employee, I think by year three, and he was with me for about a year and a half. But I raised money. I raised a couple $100,000. I had, I think, nearly $300,000 in loans, I want to say, by the end of it all. And that was something that we can talk about that too. That kind of like, I just got in this cash flow crisis basically, and cash flow is king 100%. And as I scaled and the payment terms and everything was just kind of working against me, but I put a fair amount of money in. And looking back again, I was taking on a lot of debt because I thought, okay, I'm just taking this debt, I'll get the POs and then I'll pay off the debt. But then interest was going up like crazy and payment terms were crazy, and it was just this, yeah, this whirlspin that I got caught in.
So, folks listening or watching this on YouTube, people have, she mentioned delusion. I've heard a lot of entrepreneurs use that word. Hey, I was delusional. And, sometimes that delusion works out, sometimes it doesn't. But it seems to be a common thread or motivator for entrepreneurs. But I think on the other side of the coin, Erica, those that don't start businesses
Mhm,
are delusional in thinking that successful people get there without having the losses along the way. And you
mhm.
mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, that you're most qualified to help those that are going through what you've already gone through. So I hope you can use this platform and certainly this show to spread that message. How much revenue did you do, either in total or during your peak year?
I wasn't doing that much. I mean, like multi six figures.
Hmm.
And, I bootstrapped it the first 2 years and I broke even. I think the first year I did like 30K and I broke even, and that was huge. But I also was like killing myself in the process. I was a one woman show. I was picking, packing, shipping, making the product. And then I basically hit a threshold and I couldn't scale it. Like I couldn't spend more time in the kitchen making stuff, and decided to outsource it to a manufacturer. And then from there, we scaled into retail, which that was probably something that I could have done differently as well. Looking back, you can always connect the dots looking back, but never going
Hmm.
forward. But again, I think I would have been set up a lot better had I had more funding from the beginning, because it just takes so much capital to successfully scale a CPG brand.
Okay. So, I mean, just doing the math here, listening to you, you raised a couple hundred, maybe 300,000 in loans. It's safe to say at least $500,000. If
Mhm.
you were to wind time backwards and start over, if you wanted to do this again, how much money do you think would have been required to really get this to launch?
There's like no magic number, but I remember when I was raising money, I think I was like trying to raise 300,000 or something when I was scaling into retail. And I talked to a handful of other founders who were further along in their journey, and some of them shut down their businesses. Some of them, sold their businesses off to portfolio companies. The one thing they all said was, you're going to need like $3 million, not 300,000. You're going to need so much capital to make this thing grow. And even looking and just knowing so much about the industry and how it's not profitable at all, like some of the biggest brands that are on shelves like are barely profitable, and you wouldn't even know it. It's just this big illusion of success. And CPG is a very sexy industry. Like having a product that people consume that's on shelves, like in Whole Foods and all these stores, and people know, like it's so glamorous, and you think, wow, they must be raking it in and making so much money. And I never really realized that until I was in I think I was in like a yoga class, and there was a woman next to me and I became friends with her. And she's like, "Yeah, like you must be so rich. Like you got in Whole Foods, like you're doing amazing." And then meanwhile, I'm spending my Friday night at demos at a grocery store with like a cookie costume on, handing out samples. And it's like, if I was killing it, if I was a millionaire, I wouldn't be spending my Friday nights at Fortino's handing out samples, asking people if they like my product. Like,
Right. Yeah.
like no one knows how much capital you need, especially as you get into retail. Like you have to have like insane money for listing fees, for promos, for, like when I got into hundreds of stores, they all demanded a free fill, which is basically one free case of each SKU per store. So you get 100 stores. I had three SKUs, that's 300 free cases. And that all comes back as chargebacks. So I remember I got my first PO from my distributor and it was almost $20,000. I'm like, yo, this is sick, like 20K. This is one of many, like, this is great. And then I actually got paid and it was like, okay, here's your $3,000 check in the mail that came 65 days later. Like, sorry, what? This is so
Right.
backwards. And, you stop into the grocery stores, you're in 100 stores, you could stop into 15 of them on a day, and maybe three of them has your product merchandised properly. The rest, it's in the back. They don't know where it is. They lost it. The pricing's wrong. It's in the wrong part of the store. So, how is a small brand supposed to manage that? Like on a macro level, when you're in thousands of stores, you have to have a whole merchandising team. Like, that's why, Pepsi and Coke and all these big brands, P&G, they have full teams that go out and they make sure that things are being executed properly, like on the ground in the store. It's one thing to get the PO, but to actually have it follow through and like be on shelf, that's a whole nother story. So it's just like a big learning curve. And I think it's the hardest industry to be in. And again, going back to like what I said, we're most equipped to help the person we used to be. Like I have people come to me every week and they're like, "You'll have this really great hot sauce idea and I really want to sell it in stores." I'm like, "Okay, let me just plant these seeds and these, little nuggets of wisdom, and then you can decide, because it's going to be a hard, long run and you just have to make sure you have the resources." Like I think there is an element of naiveness, but you also have to be prepared, and I didn't have that preparation in place, which kind of led to the outcome that happened. And yeah.
Right. Okay. So what were your profit margins projected
Oh.
to be on your product?
No, it was, yeah. I mean, when I was online and doing everything in-house, I was like breaking even.
Mhm.
So, and that was good. I
Mhm.
had a friend who was a competitor and they told me, "Oh, like every online order that goes out the door, I lose $15."
Wow.
And that's very typical. That's very typical for the industry, especially for a refrigerated product. Like my product wasn't shelf stable and I had to express ship it and it had ice in it and adding in all the packaging materials. Like people don't understand. I
Mhm.
only imagine like how hard it is for ice cream businesses. Like that's a whole nother beast to manage. It's very
Sure.
difficult. But even I think Halo Top didn't really have the big exit that everyone thought it did. Like it was kind of like, okay, I'm going to hand over this company because I don't know how profitable they were, but it's just such a hard category to be in. But I was selling my product on shelf for like it was 4.99, which is a very expensive like protein bar.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, like I think some stores I was losing like 15 cents, 20
Mm.
cents on it. I was in the red. And the idea is, okay, I'll get out of the red once I scale, and my production runs are bigger, and then the cost per unit's going to go down. But then you layer in all these other expenses that come in. Like when you go into a grocery store, they expect you to do demos.
Mhm.
So every time you see someone in a grocery store that's handing out samples, like that's what I would do, because I didn't want to pay a demo company, because
Mm.
for one day it'd be like $300, $200 to $300, and they want you to do 10 of them across a month. So you have to add in all of that. How many units do you have to sell to make that back, right? A $5
Absolutely.
product. So yeah, I guess it was just there's just so many expenses that I wasn't taking into account. And then promos, when you go on sale, you have to account that. Just assume you're always going to be on sale. So you knock off 15% as well. And you take most of that hit, the retailer doesn't.
Doesn't.
And
Mhm.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's a really good behind the curtain sneak peek, I guess, to the industry.
Yeah.
Okay, so $3 million looking back probably required. Um, other than the money part, other than the money part, what were the other challenges? You spoke to some of them, but would 3 million have financed a team for you?
Yeah, I learned because again, this is like my first crack at entrepreneurship. I'd never ever
Mhm.
been in business and had no business experience. I think having someone, and again, this is controversial. Some people think, okay, having a co-founder is not the solution to everything, but I do think having someone, be on my team who supports my skill set. I'm very good at marketing, community building, content creation, social media, but my strong suit is not operations, it's not finances. So if I had someone who had the complementary skill set, I think that would have definitely helped from the beginning. And maybe had a mentor earlier on that I checked in with, like on a consistent basis, just to know like what's ahead of me, because I kind of was just flying at the seat of my pants. And sometimes you have to as an entrepreneur, but I think you can also take calculated risks. And I wasn't really doing that. I was just kind of like, yeah, let's do this and let's do this. And so those were definitely things that I could have done differently. The other thing that was really difficult was payment terms and chasing people for money, which was awful. Like I had 30-day terms with my manufacturer, but then my distributor, I think the first time I ever got a purchase order from my distributor, it took them 84 days to pay me. And I was chasing them, harassing them, trying to, and then they send it in the mail, like a check. I'm like, what
Nail
is
mail.
this? Like 1975? What are we
Right.
doing? Like, this is so backwards. So that was another thing. And I remember just being in survival mode. I'm like, I'm going to make this shit work. I don't care what it takes. And I took out a personal line of credit to pay my manufacturer because my distributor didn't pay me in time. So then now I'm, putting my personal finances at risk, which sometimes you do what you got to do. But looking
Hmm.
back, I don't think I would have done that because
Hmm.
obviously it bit me in the ass at the end of it. So those were things, just the payment terms, and then just MOQs, minimum order quantities. So like packaging, you have to order a certain amount, and the machines, like the equipment that they use, these are like 300, $500,000 pieces of equipment that can't do like a couple thousand units. Like you have to commit to like 100,000. So you're fronting all that cash for inventory that has no place to go and it has a shelf life. So these are all things that affected it. And I would get a yes to Whole Foods, for example, and they're like, great, yes, it's April 2023. We're going to list you in March 2024. So just hang tight. So it's really shitty. Once you get in it, you're like, wow, this is a really broken industry and something needs to be done, especially for the small brands, because everyone is treated the same, really.
Hmm. Yeah. Another delusion, which I think I had at one time too, was that these big box retailers, and I'm not mentioning any names, but these big box retailers, will pay you on time and, it'll be an expedient process. But like you said, you had to chase money due you while you're basically loaning yourself money personally. And on top of that, dealing with an expiring product. So what was your shelf life?
6 months. So it was
Okay.
6 months refrigerated, and then I think I tacked on another 6 months frozen. So I'd freeze it and then pull it from the fridge, and then it would get distributed into stores.
Gotcha. Which sounds like a lot of time, but it's
No.
dying, right? I mean, the moment you make it, it starts to die, whether it's six
Hmm.
months or it's 12 months. So, wow, interesting. So, when did you start to kind of experience, I'll call it sort of the first crack in the company where you're like, ugh, I don't know that this is going the way it should?
It would have been like my first swing at retail. So retail and e-com are two very different beasts, and they attract two very different consumers. And I thought, okay, because my product works so well online, it's going to work well in store. So I launched with the same product, like it was a tub of cookie dough, similar ingredients. I launched it into 100 stores and it just didn't sell. And people didn't like the price point. They wanted it to be gluten free. It wasn't gluten free at the time. Like I spent probably 100 hours in grocery stores getting feedback from customers. Retailers also get to decide where it goes in the store. You don't get much of a say, and it should have been in like the healthier natural set, but they put it next to Pillsbury and dairy, and that was consuming as or confusing as well for consumers. So I was getting calls from buyers, and they basically said, "Okay, your shit's collecting dust. We need to figure out how to sell this stuff because it's not moving, and I want to put something in there that does sell." So I had to go on aggressive promos and sell through all that inventory, and I delisted it basically. And normally that's a very expensive process, but because I was small, some of them worked with me and I didn't scale until like the big, massive chains. They were like the smaller local shops. And I also had to write off like $20,000, $30,000 worth of inventory of packaging of produced product that had nowhere to go.
Right.
So that was kind of like the first red flag. I was like, hey, maybe this thing isn't working.
Hmm.
Maybe, I don't know. But I'm so stubborn. I'm like, I have to give it another swing. I'm going to be really mad at myself if I don't try again. So I spent all this time in grocery stores collecting feedback from customers, fixed everything about the product. I made it single serve. It was cheaper, cleaner ingredients, gluten free, was in the natural set, grab and go. And the product itself did well and people loved it, but the price point was too high and I couldn't lower it. Like it would kill my business. And
Hmm.
because the price point was too high, then people aren't buying it at the rate that I need them to for me to recoup, and
Sure.
have stuff coming out and then refilling. And so that was another issue that I was running into. I also was just so burnt out and just exhausted from doing everything for so long. Like I was almost 5 years in and still going to grocery stores, still doing my merchandising, didn't have the funds to bring on more team members. And I just looked at the bigger picture and thought, okay, I don't think this is not working anymore. So
Sure.
yeah.
Sure. Okay. Thank you for exposing all of that again. On this show, we talk about people, products, and processes that make a massive impact. Getting back to you, you've made a massive impact on LinkedIn. When you made this public announcement, which was what, about a year ago, right? March of
Hmm.
24. Um, I remember reading that Brodo had actually gone bankrupt. You had shut it down. But what kind of a response did you get from the community?
Um, so it's interesting. I wasn't initially going to share it because I was literally deep in my shit at the time. And I think I booked a retreat and did ayahuasca in Mexico. I was like, I need to just get away from this and fix everything. And I realized that I needed to share it. So when I did share it and I posted about it, I had probably like since then, maybe 30 different conversations with people who are in the exact same boat, who went through the filing process for bankruptcy, who were about to, who had questions about it, who, um, were afraid of going through it and the stigma associated with it. Like, I think what
Sure.
I wanted to do was just show that it's a part of like the risks associated with business. Like it's an outcome that can happen and it's happened to some very well-known people. Like I remember just the backstory behind me actually going through filing bankruptcy. I was sitting with my friend crying at a co-working space telling him how miserable I was and he's like just shut it down, just file bankruptcy. And I'm like, I can't. That's fucked up. Like what are people going to think? I don't know. I don't know if I can do that. And then he's like, "Okay, one sec." So he Googles famous entrepreneurs that have filed bankruptcy. And then this whole list comes up, and it's like Milton Hershey, Walt Disney, 50 Cent, Donald Trump. There's like all these people on this
Hmm.
list. And he's like, see? And I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, okay. Like, it's really not that bad. And it's really like a reset button. And I think I just wanted to communicate that with people and just be open about my journey because that's been my goal since the beginning to just be transparent. And if I wasn't transparent about this part of the business, then what am I doing? And I didn't have any backlash or anything, but I did have a lot of people, a handful of people reach out to me saying like, "Don't do it, don't shut it down, keep going, like you've got this." Like I had someone send me the longest, it was like a novel. This just like, "You should do this, you should try this. Have you thought of this? You should do this." Like you've put so much into it. And while I appreciate that, like a lot of people don't understand what it's like being in the business and the day-to-day operations. They only see parts of it and they don't really know. And even like the mental anguish, like going through it emotionally and all of the things, like it just became to be too much. And then when I made the decision to shut it down, I remember reconnecting with friends and they had said, they're like, "We don't know, like it's probably the business, but you just seem like a different person. Like you have this lightness and this brightness to you and you don't feel heavy." And like I used to be Eeyore, really. Every time I would go to like networking calls or catch up calls with my friends, everyone's like, "Yeah, I'm doing this amount in revenue. I just got this brand deal. I did this. I got this client." And then they're like, "Erica, what's up?" And I'm like, yeah, like a retailer owes me like $50,000 or, I was not profitable or I got sued or whatever. Like it's
Right.
just all this shit happening all the time. And I read a quote and it's like, if everything is coming at you, you're probably in the wrong lane. And I think I was in the wrong lane for
Mm.
a very long time. Um, so yeah, but anyway, that's all to say. I think posting about it did help a lot of people and I was able to have a lot of conversations with people about it.
Yeah, sounds like maybe you've prevented some from, taking a step that maybe, could have been disastrous.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good, good. Okay, so sounds like, you learned some hard lessons. If you could do it over again, obviously you would change a lot of things, but I want to stress to those listening, although you shut this down, you have not failed. And we'll get into, what you're into now. But how did you kind of pick your feet up and choose or find your next direction?
I'm still kind of doing that right now. I have done a lot of stumbling and I immediately rushed into like I had a mentor and I really respect him, but he gave me some advice that wasn't very helpful for me. He said you need to get into something new and you can't sit in it. Like you have to like get momentum back. And I did. So I remember I launched this whole personal branding agency and this was like a month after and built out this whole business model and then realized, you know what, I haven't actually processed what I've been through. Like I built this for 4.5 years and I'm just trying to distract myself and I think I'm not making logical decisions because my emotions are still so in the mix. But just letting myself fully grieve it and did a lot of journaling. I did a lot of quote unquote soul searching and just reframing it as well. Like I did think that I was a failure for a long time and I was really hard on myself because I am a perfectionist. And then you have all those thoughts. What if? Like, what if I kept going? What if I raised more money? What if the
Mhm.
outcome was different? I should have done this differently. Like, um, that was really hard. And then being perceived by people as well. I did have some people tell me that I was a failure. And who am I to go and consult people and help people with their businesses because mine failed? And
Mhm.
that can be really difficult when you have outside voices coming in and getting in your head and then, making you second guess yourself. So, lots of stumbling, lots of healing, and then just trying to tap into my intuition more because I've just been go, go, go all the time. It's like, okay, what do I really want for myself now? And I do the ghost writing and it's something that pays my bills and I like helping people tell their stories and, grow their personal brands. But I think at the end of the day, like I love my podcast. I love being vulnerable. I love, having vulnerable conversations and helping people on their journeys and just help people love and accept who they are and allow them to be their most authentic self because I think that's the best frequency you can be at is when you're truly yourself and you don't have to water yourself down for any reason. And I think I'm finally getting there and I'm kind of figuring out what's next. Um, but yeah, it's been a journey to say the
Awesome.
least. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, that's great. So speak a little bit more about magnitude. Is this something that you're jumping back into? Is it going to be the next thing for you?
Yeah, it's actually, I won't get too much into it, but I had a partnership and we launched Magnitude together and I had an investor and we were building up this whole agency model. And then I just found that things weren't working and we broke off the partnership in January. And I still do Magnitude, but I just have like a couple clients that I work with. It's kind of this side thing. And this past month, actually, I've been planning and figuring out what I want to do with my personal brand because I've been helping people build theirs. And I love doing that, but I think I want to do more for myself and tap more into the personal development stuff and talk more about my past and help people overcome obstacles and stuff that they're going through. And I'll do that through like Instagram as a platform that I've never really been active on. At LinkedIn, I post almost every day and I love it and it's great, but it's like, okay, how can I create bigger impact? I want to take this on other platforms and I want to build a community and I don't know what that looks like yet, but I think it's just putting stuff out that is true to me that I think will help people that feels right and is not forced. So that's going to be happening in the upcoming weeks and continuing to build the podcast. And I'm going to start bringing on guests and share their stories and just hopefully have a ripple effect that way.
I think that's great. When I saw that you're The name that you chose was Magnitude, and it's all capitalized. That really kind of stood out because the podcast Massive Impact is also capitalized. My manufacturing engineering consulting company, you see the logo behind me, that V, Verada, that's all capitalized.
Mm,
That's Italian for change direction,
mm.
which is what you're doing. You're pivoting. It also means turn around. So I saw a lot of commonality, I guess is what I'm trying to say, in your journey here, and I appreciate you sharing it today. What kind of advice would you give in general to somebody right now thinking about, jumping into something scary, something big?
Just go, I think. And it's the quote that everyone says, and I fully believe it. Like everything you want is on the other side of fear, and
Mm.
I'm facing that right now. I have this giant wall, this barricade in front of me, and it's like, okay, there's so much greatness on the other side of it. I just have to get over it. And the analogy of the bull, like there's bulls and cows in a field, and a storm comes. The bulls run towards the storm, so they pass it, and then the cows run away from it, and then the storm just follows them. And I just tell people be the bull, like run towards the storm because there's sun on the other side. If you run away, it's just going to continue hanging over you and follow you, and it only gets better if you run towards it. So I guess that's what I would say.
Awesome. So what can we expect? What else in the near future? What can we see?
Yeah, lots of content, more interesting conversations because I've just done solo episodes for my podcast. I launched it last summer and I felt like I was a bad person, and that's why it's called You're Not a Bad Person. So I want to bring on some interesting people to interview and share their stories, give them a platform to talk about their experiences, and hopefully impact more people.
That's fantastic. I think this is off the cuff here. It's not in the notes, but I think I saw something about you getting baptized. Did you post that on LinkedIn?
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah, again, when I was doing my soul searching, I got in my car and drove to Austin, Texas last summer, and I got plugged into a church. And the day I got baptized, actually, I met my best friend in line, and I
Oh,
stayed with
wow.
her the last 2 weeks. She is one of the closest people in my lives, and I haven't even known her that long. But yeah, it was kind of just a feeling,
Yep.
and I felt called to it, and I've kind of been on this spiritual journey. Like that's been one huge piece of it is having God get me through all of the shit that happened in the past like year and a half. So yeah.
Absolutely. Congratulations. Thanks for sharing all of
Mm.
that. And thanks for the show today. Thanks for being a guest. You may find this podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Podbean. Erica, I'm going to ask you to hang on for a minute after we exit. But until next time, thanks for joining.